About how to convert your color images into black and white. Now there's two main ways that you can do that in Photoshop. One is kind of like a general converting it to what we call grayscale. The other one actually gives you a lot more control over an image. And those of you that like to be controlling and manipulative to your pictures, you'll probably like that version. So we're going to start out with one of your photos. I'm going to do the same photo that I've been demonstrating. I'm going to use my lemon picture. But I actually made a new folder on my desktop here, and then another new folder that's called Convert to Black and White. So I have a picture in here, and I've actually already done some manipulations and some adjustments to it. In the book, it tells you that when you decide if you're converting something to black and white, you want to do it early in the basic image workflow process. So you want to do this before levels and curves. You can go all the way up to step 4, take care of the noise reduction, all of your editing as far as cropping and resizing, and then you decide when to convert to grayscale or to black and white. All right, so method 1 is on page 96. This is a very quick way to assess basically what your picture would look like if it was converted to black and white. It's not necessarily the best way because grayscale pictures tend to have kind of an overall dullness. There's not a lot of heavy, strong blacks. Like a mid-range of grays or light values of white. So converting to grayscale is good if you just wanted to see what your picture would look like. It's kind of the fastest way to create this, but it's not the best for the photographer that wants a lot of control with their picture. So this is brought up. I just did despeckling on it. I'm done step 4. And if you wanted to convert this to grayscale very quickly, you would go up to Image, and this is under Mode, and then you would just click Grayscale. This little box will come up. It's going to ask you if you want to discard your color information, and you're going to hit discard because you got to get rid of that to get the black and white. So right here, this is just a basic, quick conversion to grayscale. You can kind of see it's very blah. There's some areas of like darks and highlights and a lot of gray, but it's not very intense. So at this point, I want you to click File, Save As, and you're going to put in your name, whatever picture you're calling it. I'm calling mine Lemons. And then I'm going to save this as grayscale. Okay, so that's going to be a copy. So that's a 2-step process for converting to grayscale. All right, we want to save this as a copy though because you have to access this when we do a comparison between the two. So that's your first method. You can X out of that. And I'm not going to save. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my original, I had my Lemons document here. And I'm going to pull that up in Photoshop again. And this is the same. I saved it at the point where I want it to begin. This is all my despeckling, my cropping, everything has been saved, so I can just work right from this document here. And then now we're going to go to page 97 where we're using the second method. It's called using the channel mixer. Channel mixer is a better approach. This has more control. It gives you a way of typing in preset adjustments so that it kind of mimics what your camera would look like if you were using a filter to highlight certain areas of tones, highlight certain areas of color, and then convert it to black and white. And it's a much richer picture depending on which formula that you use. So the first thing, where you find this, you go up to Image, and this time it's in Adjustments, and it's in like your second grouping of selections here, and you hit Channel Mixer. And you have all of these sliders. You see that there's a red slider, green, and a blue. And these are the filters of the different parts of light that you can control in your picture. Before you start going crazy with these filters, nothing's going to happen unless you hit monochrome. So that button down the bottom has to be selected because that takes away all the color information, and it just has you work with black and white. Then you have these sliders. Well, the first thing, people wind up going like crazy with sliders here, and they move things up and they pull them down. And it really gives some intense changes to your picture. Not that this is good. Okay, there are specific things that you can put in as far as formulas that you want to achieve a certain type of black and white. And if you notice down the bottom, anytime you go over 100% where the total is, okay, it says total here, I'm at 162%. There's a little warning, like a yield sign that comes up, and it says your total is greater than 100. In order to get a really good black and white image using Channel Mixer, you don't want to go higher than 100 because then it winds up looking kind of blown out, really off balance with a lot of white or a lot of dark, and you don't want that. So when you look in the textbook, there's kind of a purple, like a light purple box at the top, and it says simulated filter effect and then channel mixer setting. There are 4 different settings with numerical percentage breakdowns that all equal 100. And based on your particular photo, one of those filtered effects would be the best option for your picture. So let's say the first one is 100% red filter. So that means I would get rid of everything else here. And that's what it would look like with a red filter. It's actually kind of nice. If you want to pull up your original grayscale picture that you saved, your grayscale copy, and have that side by side, you can pull that off. Your grayscale will be here. And then as you convert to channel mixer, you can kind of compare to see the two side by side and see what they look like. So I'm going to go back to adjustments, pull up channel mixer again, and I didn't save it, so I'm going to go back and do this. So if I go back to my 100, put my values in, you should actually be able to see kind of a decent difference between the two. Okay, there's a lot more like bright, crisp whites, nice highlights in the channel mixer version. So the red filter with 100%, that actually looks pretty good. Try the other ones though, like the yellow filter under where it says simulated filter effect in your book. If you were to use a yellow filter, that would be 50% red and 50% green. That one wasn't as bright. That was kind of like close to the original grayscale. A little bit more highlights, but I think the red filter was the best so far. If you go back down and you switch, there's another one for 75% red, 25% green. And then the last one they have is a 50% filter blue and 50% filter green, and that's hideous. I would never want to do that because the filter has totally changed what my basic values in the picture were. It's made the lemons look like they're kiwis or limes, like something very dark, you know. So that's not an appropriate filter for this particular image. You might, on the other hand, have pictures that were heavily saturated with greens and blues and kind of cool colors, and that filter may make it look better. Okay, so this is like image specific. It's not everybody's going to do well with the red filter, or everybody's going to do well with the yellow filter. That's different for everybody's photo. So you kind of have to go through all 4 of these and decide which one was the best. In my case, I think the 100% red filter really did a nice job at highlighting the clean white areas of the bowl, the highlights of the lemon, making the difference between the butterfly print and the back of the pattern. So I'm going to stick with this one. So when I go to save this, you go to File. Oh, you actually have to apply everything first. You have to click OK. Then you have to go to File, Save As. And this time I'm going to keep it L. Jackson, title of my picture. And then I'm going to put this as channel mixer. And then type the name of the filter that I used. I used the red filter, that percentage that was in the book. Okay, so that's my channel mixer, red filter. Save it as a copy, as a TIFF, and click OK. Okay, so now I have my 2 pictures here. And then what you're going to do is make your final document, a new document. Make sure it's appropriate based on the size and the orientation that your original pictures are. So I'm going to make my document 11 inches tall, 8.5 inches wide, resolution at 200. And then using the Move tool, just like we've done before, you're going to take those pictures and you're going to slide them into the new document. Command T will allow you to free transform your picture. Hold down Shift so it stays in proportion. And that one is my grayscale. And then this one is my new one. This was the channel mixer red, and it's kind of hard to see unless you put them both together. That's why I want you to do this on a separate document so you can actually see the difference between the values of the black and the white together. And this one in particular, the red filter, really kind of honed in on the distinction between the pattern on the back fabric. It made the butterflies kind of stand out, and it really enhanced and cleaned up a lot of those highlights on the original, the lemons and the bowls. Okay, so then you would label it. This would be black and white. You can use your text tool anytime today. Okay, this would be black and white. And I'm just doing this really quick. You're going to make yours look nice and centered and not all over the place. But The title would be black and white. You would put your name, and then you would label, this would be grayscale, and resize it appropriately, of course. Okay, little tiny guy is good. Click OK. Then you can go back, and this one would be your channel mixer, and then whatever the filter was that you used. So in this case, I used red filter. This picture is my channel mixer. Okay, this gets saved then as your name, black and white. And we're saving that as what? What document format? Thank you. Yes, everything you save to me and you put into the A1 drive is going to be saved as a JPEG. So make sure that you save it where exactly you want it to. I have a specific folder that I made for black and white in my basic image workflow, and that's where I'm going to save it so I can easily access that. Save it to my flash drive, my student drive, and then to the A1 drive, and you can put it there. Okay, now both this particular document with the black and white and your basic image workflow where you did the before and the after when we first learned this, both of those are going to count as project grades. Okay, so they'll both be project grades before we leave for break. And then on Wednesday, we're going to start with a new assignment. Now you have the backbone, you know how to edit your photos, you know how to manipulate them. And then we're going to go with a larger assignment that's going to take us a little bit longer to complete. So we will start it before we leave for break, and then we'll continue it when we return. Okay, so I'll discuss a little bit more in detail about that once we hit Wednesday. And that gives you the rest of the period today and tomorrow to finish your basic image workflow before and after. And then also, if you're done with that, you can start playing around with the black and white conversions. All right, so those two pages, 96 and 97, they have everything there that you need. I'm going to post the video tutorial so that you can see it again if you need to. And then we'll